Hello, my dear audience. How are you? This past Wednesday, April 16, in the early hours of the morning, something very meaningful happened. After 3 years of negotiations, intense work, and countless late-night meetings, the member states of the World Health Organization finalized the negotiation of the Future Pandemic Agreement, a legally binding instrument aimed at strengthening multilateral, regional and national systems for pandemic prevention, preparedness and response, with equity at its core. A real international treaty, and one we truly need. And although it didn't make the front pages of the newspapers, as it should have, what was achieved here in Geneva is historic. This episode of El Ginebrino isn't meant to be a deep dive analysis of the treaty. Today I just wanted to take a moment to share an initial reflection with you. Some early thoughts about what this treaty means, what it symbolizes, how it came to be, and why I believe that beyond the actual text, what was achieved is deeply valuable for multilateralism. In a world so marked by polarization, skepticism, disinformation, and growing hostility toward international cooperation, reaching an agreement like this is no small thing. And I felt I needed to say it. First, I want to say this. As an international relations graduate, taking part in the negotiation of an international treaty was a dream come true. Last year, I had the opportunity and the privilege to be part of the WHO Secretariat team that supported this process from its earliest stages. I had the chance to work with brilliant colleagues and I learned so much. I even got to be a text editor, something I had never imagined. It was an experience that left a mark on me, that challenged me and reminded me why I chose this path, the path of diplomacy and international relations. So let's talk about the text that was finalized and that will be presented to the next World Health Assembly in May for adoption. Just a quick clarification. The pandemic agreement will be submitted to the 78th World Health Assembly, WHO's higher decision-making body, which will take place from May 19 to 17 here in Geneva. After that, as outlined in the agreement itself, negotiations will begin on a complementary system introduced in the treaty, the pathogen access and benefit sharing system. We'll talk about that later. Once that process moves forward, the pandemic agreement will be open for signature by member states as soon as possible. In other words, this is not the end. It's the beginning. Once adopted, each country will have to go through its own internal processes to sign and ratify the agreement. Only after a minimum number of ratification is reached will the treaty officially enter into force. The agreement itself isn't perfect, but it's absolutely necessary. It's a pact that aims to ensure that the next pandemic, because there will be a next one, find us better prepared. COVID-19 showed us the best and worst of humanity. It exposed us. Collapsing health systems, unequal access to vaccines, countries competing with each other, misinformation spreading faster than the virus, and millions of lives lost. One truth became painfully clear. No country can face a crisis of this magnitude alone. This treaty matters because it tries to make sure we don't repeat the mistakes we lived through, because it aims to ensure that decisions aren't made in the chaos of emergency, but based on clear rules and shared principles. And even if it sounds too ambitious, it tries to make solidarity more than just a slogan. It tries to make it real. So, what's actually in it? Well, for the first time in a treaty of this kind, countries agreed to further strengthen the health systems with provisions that complement and expand upon those already set out in the international health regulations, work to improve the protection of health workers, and prioritize mental health during health emergencies. The treaty also promotes a comprehensive approach known as One Health, which recognizes the deep interconnection between human, animal, and environmental health. On top of that, the text includes commitments around research and development, geographically diversified local production, supply chain, and a strong focus on public communication and tackling misinformation. However, if I had to highlight a single article as the heart of this treaty, it would be Article 12, the Pathogen Access and Benefit Sharing System. It's about ensuring that countries can quickly and safely share information and samples of new viruses, something essential to developing vaccines and treatments, and, in return, receive concrete benefits. Benefits like donated or affordably priced vaccines, research and development partnerships, technology transfer, and technical assistance to support local production in developing countries. In a future pandemic, manufacturers participating in the system will be required to reserve a portion of the real-time production for WHO, part as a donation, part as at affordable prices, and ensure it's distributed based on public health risk, prioritizing countries with fewer resources. This system is key because it aims to break the every country for itself logic, and because it puts one critical question at the center. If a country shares a virus, will it also get access to the vaccine developed from it? That's why I say this article gives the treaty its soul. Without equitable access, there can be no truly global response, because at the end of the day, equity is and must be the core of the treaty. What does it mean in practice? It means we cannot have countries with immediate access to vaccines while others are left behind. It means publicly funded medical innovation must come with clauses for fair access. It means production should not be concentrated in a handful of countries, but diversified and decentralized. It means knowledge, technology, and capacity should be shared. Because if the pandemic taught us anything, it's this: no one is safe until everyone is. That said, this isn't a perfect treaty. For many, this came later than hoped. And it didn't resolve every sensitive issue. In many places, the language is cautious and open to interpretation. But, and this is important, it's still a huge step forward. It's a starting point. And like any international treaty, its real power doesn't lie only in what is written, but in what it's done, in how it's implemented, in whether countries take it seriously, in whether it gets funded, in whether it becomes real policy that saves lives. Coordinating internal positions across all countries involved in the negotiation was a massive task. Add to that the involvement of ministries of health, trade, environment, foreign affairs. The process was as complex as it was ambitious, and still, it happened. Each day, I value multilateralism more, as a way to tackle the massive global challenges we face together: pandemics, climate change, migration, inequality. But multilateralism isn't perfect. It needs urgent reform to be more agile, more inclusive, more efficient, and more transparent. At a time when international cooperation is under fire, WHO and its member states show that dialogue, negotiation, and consensus are still possible. And let's be clear, this treaty doesn't mean giving up sovereignty. Quite the opposite. It explicitly reaffirms the sovereign rights of states. No provision gives WHO or its Director General the power to change national laws. Everything it contains is the result of a multilateral negotiation process, built over 3 years of dialogue among the 994 member states of the WHO. While some countries, such as the United States and Argentina, shifted their positions in the final stages and withdrew from the negotiations, following changes in government, both were actively involved in the early phases of the process to shaping the text we now have on the table. A while ago, I wrote that this treaty must remind us of what we went through, because after every emergency comes forgetfulness. That cycle of panic and neglect, the "it's over, it won't happen again," and we know it will happen again. This agreement, with its strengths and flaws, is at least a barrier against that collective amnesia, a reminder of how vulnerable we are, but also how powerful we can be when we act together. The pandemic treaty isn't an end. It's the beginning of a new phase, a chance, if we seize it, to build a more just, more prepared, and less fragile world. Not long ago, a good friend and experienced Mexican diplomat wrote something that has stuck with me. This treaty isn't just a tool to better face the next pandemic. It's a pact against oblivion. Let's hope it doesn't become a monument to the past, but a living tool for the future. We'll talk again soon. This was El Ginebrino Podcast.